welcome to episode 165 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, recorded June 12th, 2022. My name is Ian. I'm a wannabe lumberjack with an electric chainsaw on Vancouver Island. I apologize to Eric. He got a little upset with us for disclosing he was at the furry convention last week. So I got to be honest, that was a bit of I was trying to, let him save some face. So I was trying to make him seem a little more edgy than he really was. Turns out he was actually at a Dungeons and Dragons conference.
Yeah. No, it's easy to get those two things confused.
Basically the same thing, right?
And he tells me he's going to have enough hit points to finish up, and he should be back by next week.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah. So,
I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, including search and rescue technician, security expert, and overall safety nerd.
I'm Gavin. I'm an instructor with Ragnarok Tactical, a fellow podcaster on the other CPP, which is the original CPP, but stay tuned for maybe a third CPP. I don't know. And volunteer search and rescue.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd.
If you want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch available at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. We also want your feedback, good or bad, or just if there's a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
all right, we have some hard-to-find content for you this episode.
It's the best one in a while.
Yeah.
Struggling on that one.
Yeah, what can you do, right? Eric's not here. I'm lost.
Right.
Anyway, we're going to start off with some recent news, update our personal preps, then we're going to get into the main topic, which is search and rescue operations. So news time.
I put in a couple of rather topical news stories tonight, both from Ontario. One is a good news story where a missing person was quickly located in probably the most common way that it happens. Police put out an appeal for information, and the person who was missing realized that they were being looked for and called it.
Well, that's always good when you can find yourself. Yeah.
Well, actually, how does that happen exactly? Like, does somebody expect him somewhere and he just didn't show or something, or how does somebody become lost?
For a million different reasons. It could be that somebody left a note that was never found, or somebody sent a text message that was never delivered, or somebody just plumb forgot to call in and say, I'm going to take off for the weekend and I'll be back. Things like that happen on a pretty regular basis. It will also happen where, especially with teenagers, they say they're going to one friend's house, they end up at another friend's house. So when, mom and dad call the friend where they're supposed to be, they're not there, nobody knows where they are, things get a little panicky. That happens less and less now that everybody has a cell phone, but that used to happen a lot, at least when I was a kid anyways. That happened a lot. It was a pretty regular occurrence.
Yeah, everyone thinks you're at a friend's place when really you're dying in a ditch somewhere because you're at a bush party.
Yeah, or just at another friend's house.
Yeah. That you're not supposed to be. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and usually somewhere where you're not supposed to be. But yeah, those kinds of things happen all the time. Or somebody's flight gets canceled and they forget to communicate that they're going to be a few hours delayed, and all of a sudden somebody panics.
Or alcohol is involved.
I don't know what.
Or generally alcohol is involved. Yeah. So that is, that was kind of our good news. That was my good news story on search and rescue. The flip side of that. Is one out of Ottawa where there's a 15-year-old boy missing. This is from 6 days ago. He's a Hamilton teen, but he was last seen in Ottawa, and they think he's still there. And one of the challenges with that is when you don't, when it's somebody who's not local, they tend not to know as many people. They tend not to have familiarity with the area. They're more likely to remain lost. Because they're out of their natural habitat. Whereas somebody who's local, you can generally pick up on their habits pretty readily. You can, where kind of approximately where they're going to be and when they're going to be there. When they're out of their element, they become a lot harder to track down if they don't want to be found.
Fair enough. As for myself, I've got a news story from Michigan County, which I'm assuming is in Michigan. They decided to put an announcement they're going to stop responding to some 911 calls. They're basically doing a 911 triage now, whether or not they're actually going to send an officer on scene when you call 911 because they've blown through their gas budget.
Sounds right.
Yes. I mean, it's not cheap.
It's not cheap, and I guess if
Yeah.
somebody's got a cat in a tree, it's like I guess Felix is gonna have to find his own way out, and
Yeah, he found his way up there. He can find his way down.
yeah, I guess that's it. So.
It's not, listen, almost all emergencies are self-resolving on a long enough timeline. It becomes not an emergency after a specific after a series of events. But I honestly don't have the biggest problem with this. I know in Ontario, police have a requirement to attend every time they're called, even if it's just a BS like neighbor complaint or noise complaint.
Which is stupid.
It is, right? So I'm thinking that this is, again, this might be an opportunity to take a good hard look at where we actually allocate our human resources, as opposed to simply a blanket response because we have to. So I take this, yes, I'm kind of the optimist. I tend to look for the best in every situation, but
See, me being the half glass or glass half empty guy, I'm thinking this is like halfway to the next step where the cops go run door to door and say, if you want us to respond to 911 calls, you should really, donate some gas money to us.
Yeah. Or
or we might not be able to make that call
dial
next
the
time.
real emergency number 912.
Yeah, exactly.
so it's a real nice place you got here. It'd be a real shame if something were to happen to it, eh?
Or if we didn't have the gas to
maybe
get
be
there and save it.
interested in taking out an insurance policy fulfilled by us, and then you have adequate protection.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
Would
just
you like to
that.
buy a support the blue sticker for the back of your car, sir?
Yeah, it's $100 a
Only
week.
$10,000. Yeah.
Considering my previous employment, I'm actually surprised that they don't triage their 911 calls. We did for at least the last several years that I was there, and we don't respond to all 911 calls. If it's clearly and definitely not an emergency, you may get a phone call, or you may be just told to call back on the non-emergency line and not be tying up a 911 line. So
Okay.
I'm surprised
Very
more of
reasonable way
them
to do it.
don't do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, on maybe more lighthearted news, we've all hit our breaking point at certain points along this last couple of years. I think I just hit mine because the Sriracha hot sauce company from Haifong Foods there down in California has just announced that they're going to have to halt production.
Guys,
as a good prepper, though, you should have stocked up on this.
I did. And luckily, there's still a few bottles left at the superstore. I'll be heading there tomorrow to finish it off. But yeah, they actually, because I guess the crop failures, bad weather, and lack of fertilizer and or manpower, they had a failed crop for the spring here. They're not anticipating enough to have summer taken care of, so they figure for at least 3 to 6 months they're going to be shut down. So Rooster brand hot sauce offline.
Oh, there you go.
Guys,
Well,
I'm willing to put up with a lot. Like I think
Yeah.
I've been pretty tolerant through the last 2 years, and understanding that things happen and this is why we prepare. I am not willing to accept this as
I
a new
can't work in
reality.
these conditions.
I don't wish to live in a world where sriracha is not readily available.
Yeah.
This is DEFCON 2 for me. This is not
Well,
good
And I didn't realize they are the largest hot sauce maker. Is it North America or the world?
in the world.
I think it's the world, actually.
Yeah, I
The
think
world. Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that actually is kind of a big deal. So
So we have this there's this barbecue mustard, or barbecue mustard that French's makes, and we discovered that it was going to be discontinued by the local superstore. We always bought it, 2 or 3 bottles at a time. So we went on Amazon and found a case of it for like 80 some odd cents a bottle by the time everything was said and done. So we ordered 2. I've done the same thing with sriracha. We got as much in as we possibly could because, well, if other people can hoard toilet paper, I can hoard hot sauce. And
you got to watch it, though, because you know who else is a fan of hot sauce?
who's that?
Hillary is a big fan of hot sauce.
Okay.
She's pulled it out of her purse during interviews and things like that. And I mean, if you know what's happened with anyone that knows anything that might lead to her being arrested, just imagine what happens when you're the last one on the planet with hot sauce. I'm just saying.
or you're
Come on.
responsible for the production halting.
Yeah, I'm just giving you fair warning.
Come and take it.
Jeff, what do you
And
got?
I've got
Sorry, I got a little emotional there.
and I've got a couple quick ones. Should not be a shock to absolutely anybody that inflation just keeps on trucking. It's a U.S. article, but I mean, the May inflation numbers, shockingly, were higher than expected. There's CPI, I think, which is the same thing. We have sort of the same thing here. I can't remember the name, what we call it, but price index or something is at a 40-year high. It's never been higher since 1981.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear that. Is anybody else shocked?
Whoever would have guessed?
Astounded.
Overspending for 2 years straight.
Yep. And they're still spending.
Blown away.
The other one that also is totally of no shock to anybody is the price of gas. It continues to rise to record levels. Saturday, gas prices in Toronto were $2.15.9 a liter. Montreal and Quebec City were $2.24.9.
Thanks, Trudeau.
Well, I mean, the gas price is one of those things where, like, it costs money to transport the gas. And if the gas price goes up, it makes the transportation of the gas go up, which then means getting it there. So it's like this
feedback loop.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also really great for business if you're in the gas industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so much if you sell gas-powered products, though, because everyone is looking for battery stuff.
Yep. And whether that's the way the government wants to do, because for whatever reason, Trudeau has just thrown his line in the sand, and he absolutely is not interested in giving any kind of a rebate at all for the carbon tax or anything. A lot of the provinces are cutting back. Ontario is supposed to do it for the month of July. A couple other ones are doing it. Trudeau has zero interest in doing anything to help us out.
Of course not. And why would he? It doesn't bother him at all.
Yeah, because if you keep buying the gas, you're going to get more tax revenue for the government. If you don't buy the gas and he's meeting his green targets, it's win-win.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yep. Anyway.
So Denny put in the chat there that he's paying $5.20 a gallon for gas, which is awful, and I'm really sorry to hear that for you, Denny. Just to do the conversion, when we're paying $2.15 a liter, that works out to $8.13 a gallon. That's without the exchange rate. So in practical terms, we're paying
about $6.20 a gallon.
Yeah, about $6.20 a gallon, $6.75 a gallon. Yeah. So I feel your pain. I don't sympathize because we have it worse. Also, but let's not forget, guys, we have really, really nice roads and big hospitals.
Yeah.
That you can't access because of COVID, but we have really big hospitals.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't say efficient or good hospitals.
I didn't say that. I said big.
The building itself is really nice.
Enormous. Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, moving on to what we've done lately for preps.
I did a little bit of food prep. I continued to work on my firewood, and I did my monthly generator test this week, and that was it for me.
Right on. I think great minds think alike there. Same thing. I've been spending a lot of time just doing the wood stacking for next year. Where I mentioned the electric chainsaw before, I think we'd mentioned that maybe 20 episodes ago about the whole electric chainsaw for the OPSEC purposes and everything else. I actually got a decent used Husqvarna electric chainsaw, and just for like delimbing stuff that's coming off the hillside there for where we knocked down the trees this winter. And instead of having to fire up the old gas powered one, it is a plug-in one. It's not battery powered, but it's just nice to be able to like just turn it off for 3 seconds and turn it off and leave it. Don't have to worry about it warming up or anything else. So that's been actually a bit of a work saver with the wood stacking for the year. Did a bit of a redo with the bug out bag, just trying to change out the backpack and update the food that was inside and make it more seasonally appropriate and all that other stuff. Interestingly enough, did a feed run for the chickens, and no chicken food available on the island. So our regular chicken food...
Does it all come from food distribution centers in the U.S.?
It actually comes from Abbotsford, where the I think it's Otter Feeds is like the largest feed producer out here. Anyway, they had a recall on all the organic feed, so I was even willing to spend money on the organic feed, but unfortunately, no, that's all recalled. Our regular feed is offline, and they don't know why. The truck just showed up empty one day, and nobody knows why, so the island is dry of food. And they don't have any alternatives, although I heard recently that duck and pig feed is kind of the same thing. That's chicken feed, just different packaging. So I'm going to see if I can track down some of that. So other than that, I had to do a bit of a fix on the wood splitter because the pull cord tore open on me. So I think Scott had mentioned that, or maybe you, Jeff, would buying a spool of starter cord.
Yep.
Yeah, same thing. I ordered one on AliExpress because I went to the local chainsaw place and I got like a too short piece of starter cord for like $6 or something. It was crazy. Anyway, so I just got a couple pieces for the meantime, but I got a spool on order. So that's pretty much it.
Now, this seems like a dumb question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Is all starter cord the same diameter?
No, Gavin will confirm it with me. But yeah, I ordered 3.5, 4, 5, and 6 millimeter cords because I got chainsaws and splitters and generators that all have different size cords.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
I mean, you can kind of get away with, like, as long as the strength of the cord is enough, it doesn't really matter too much. But it's usually like the knot that you need to make needs to fit in the little slot that it goes in and not come out of that. So you want something thick enough.
And the other length is the big thing too. So you need 1.3 meters as a minimum for like the splitter. I think he sold me a 1 meter piece. So it's just like you kind of you're stopping short when you're trying to start. It's like ow. Short now. So.
And you may need that extra quarter revolution just to finally kick it over sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, size does matter.
Yeah.
It turns out.
Sometimes.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've done very little of anything. I think we talked about it on last week's episode. I managed to damage my ankle pretty badly. So with the help of some family and friends, and thanks to all of you, I love you all and am forever in your debt. We got our new garden planted. So we disassembled our garden from last year, moved it over so that it made a little bit more logical sense in our yard after all the construction. And finally got our garden planted for the year. We got we put in our potatoes a couple of weeks ago, and then we did our veggies and herbs this week. And I still have cucumber and zucchini left to plant. But I do start rehabbing my damaged ankle this week coming, and hopefully I'll be back up and walking around unassisted come the end of the week after, hopefully. So that's about where I am.
So I cycled some gas, which made me cry because the stuff I was putting in the car was a lot cheaper than the stuff that was going into the tank. I volunteered and helped out at one of the events for National Range Day, so got to network with some like-minded people and hopefully get some new gun owners on board, which will hopefully in time make the laws in our country more palatable. I also bought some guns. I also helped build. Did you
buy them on CGN?
No, straight from the store. And
Sorry, Kyle. I tried.
Get them. Lord knows when. And then this was a little while ago, but like helped a friend rebuild his deck, and then also helped a friend roof a building, like a shop that they were doing. So got some experience doing some things that I don't really do in my every day-to-day life. So,
well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Probably right now with the things with buying a handgun or restricted firearm right now is that if a store does it, you don't need to talk to anybody, the Canadian Firearms Center or anything else, so they can just run it through the business system, and then whenever the provincial firearms office gets around to transferring it, which is like 3 months in Ontario or something right now, you'll eventually get it. Whereas if you want to do it person to person, like on CGN, you have to phone the Canadian Firearms Center, both of you, and right now it's like people have been waiting 3 and 4 hours to get through, and they can't get through. They just get hung up on. Oof. So you're way better off to just buy it from a retailer right now, despite all the panic buying going on. So I'm in the same boat as Gavin. I'm just waiting. I got a transfer reference from the store, but who knows when it'll actually get fulfilled. So
yeah, I haven't got nothing yet, but I don't expect to. My last transfer at the beginning of the pandemic took like 6 months, so I imagine this one will be a little bit longer, seeing as there was a year's worth of guns sold in like a week and change. So
yeah, I mean, we were actually averaging about a day for a transfer out here, but it's already been like a week plus, and I'm like, ugh, this is unusual. But I guess it's nothing compared to what you guys have been dealing with, so it's like, okay, I can live with that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I guess time to move on to the main topic. So, why are we talking about this? First off, I guess we did the episode on benefits of joining a search and rescue with you last time, Gavin, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's time to talk about what happens when actually somebody goes missing and what skills you employ and everything else. So I guess what happens when somebody phones in a missing person? Who should they call?
You always start with by calling 911.
Yeah.
In Ontario, anyways, the OPP have the mandate to find missing people. They delegate that to the municipal forces wherever they exist. So if it's Toronto or Mississauga, Peel Region, Durham Region, whatever, London, St. Thomas, right? They'll all have their own in-city protocols, and within that, they will usually call on trained volunteers, search and rescue teams, to expand their eyes and ears and their capabilities. So most of the police are generally in charge of that. They're always the authority having jurisdiction, at least in Ontario. Again, I know in Saskatchewan, it's delegated to the fire department as opposed to the police. So it's a little bit different out there. But regardless, 911's your first call, and they will kind of take charge of the overall operation.
Yep. No, I would agree with that. Like 911, or if you happen to know, your local police detachment phone number, you can call them too. But 911's easy.
Well,
and just one misnomer to clear up. You hear it on TV a lot. They say you have to wait 48 hours to report somebody missing. You do not.
Nope.
And if you wait 48 hours, you're a fool. Because chances are that bad things have happened to them already, especially in adverse weather conditions. As soon as somebody's missing and you've made your phone calls and you know they're missing, get the emergency services rolling.
Yeah, I think
time is the number one enemy.
Anybody that has a daughter would not be waiting 48 hours if their kid was missing.
Yeah. I mean, especially there's maybe some times where you wouldn't call it in immediately. But even on those ones, it's still better safe than sorry. But if it's definitely a kid or somebody that's, elderly or not doing well physically or mentally, the sooner you call that in, the better. And then the higher rate you have of it being a rescue and not a recovery.
So we work on a pretty general principle that an average person will go anywhere from 2 to 4 kilometers per hour on foot. So the longer you wait, the bigger the search radius, and therefore the lower probability of detection. So the sooner we can close in that search radius, the better off we are, right? So if somebody can walk, call it an average of 3 kilometers an hour. If you wait 48 hours. What's 48 by 3 is almost 400 kilometer radius. That's like London to Toronto that we could potentially have somebody missing. That's a big area to search, as opposed to if you've got 2 or 3 hours, then we can bring that in. We can bring that down really quickly.
And I mean, the people that are missing can generally walk faster than the people that are searching, because to do a meticulous search, as we'll get into later, takes some time and some thought, and to do it in a way that you make sure that you cover an entire area, because you can't miss places because the person could be hiding there.
Yep.
Or under a log or whatever.
Or under a log or up in a tree, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of variables again. So search does not happen at 3 kilometers per hour, but travel happens at 3 kilometers per hour.
And if you need to get in dogs or visual trackers, the sooner they can get on the track, the more fresh it is, the easier it is to see, and you get more of that fresh sign rather than I'm on a track that's a week old now, so how reliable is it? How easy is it to see? And things like that. So the sooner you can get on it, the better chances you have in general.
Yep, absolutely. And so definitely don't wait. If somebody's missing and you can't reach them and they haven't turned up where they're supposed to be, then if you can't find them for any reason, it's a good idea to get them get emergency services rolling. That's the difference between a rescue and a recovery.
Well, and it usually takes, even the most responsive team takes a little bit to get ready and mobilize.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if I make the phone call to 911 and need to get somebody found, how do you guys get the call that you need to, go to work, so to speak?
Well, every team and every police department and every search is going to be a little bit different. So generally the way it works is that the police will go and take their initial report, or whoever the authority having jurisdiction is. I'm going to use the police here because we're in Ontario, and that makes sense. So whoever the authority is, so the police are going to go, they're going to take their report, they're going to decide that this is a search, and they're going to stand up whoever their search manager is. The search manager will then decide, based on the information they have, whether or not they need additional ground resources. It might be, right, if there's a missing vehicle and a missing person, the chances of us needing a ground team are pretty slim. They're probably somewhere well outside our ability to walk. But if there's a pair of shoes missing but no vehicles missing, that person probably left on foot, and that's the time that the search team will get called. Every search team is probably a little bit different in how they do it. There are a whole bunch of different software apps that can be used. I Am Responding is one, Who's Responding is another. The team that I'm part of uses a management software platform called D4H.
Which, that's the same one that we use.
Yeah, and I think most teams in Ontario use that because the Provincial Volunteer Association has a license that we can make use of, and so that allows us to track our inventory as well as our people. It's pretty handy. It's pretty diverse. It's a pretty broad spectrum app. So that's how we get it. And then our liaison officer, who kind of carries the phone from the police have. So they'll have one phone number to call, and our liaison officer will have that phone, and they send out a I call it a tone, right? When we get called out, we get simultaneously a phone call, a text, and an email. So at least one of those things is getting through. It's all pre-recorded, so it's just a typed message. But the way we do it is that we get the first call that says we're being given an assignment. That gives us an opportunity to mobilize, get dressed, get our gear, top up our water, and then usually within 15 minutes we'll get actual details of it. So we've got our local constabulary trained well to call us first and say, we're not sure exactly what we need, but we definitely need you. And that gets people rolling. So because we respond within about 150 kilometers, so it might not be in our town, it might be out of town. We have people that live out of town. It can take some time to get there. So the sooner we're being called out, the sooner we're assembling, the sooner we're out on our tasking, looking for those clues and advancing what we call the last known point of that person.
Yeah, and our system is almost identical to that. We get a message saying like, hey, person's missing, stand by. So like start getting all your stuff together and like who's going to be able to make it. And we'll get like an approximate location, like just so we know roughly how far away we need to be. And then sort of as things develop, we'll either, get stood down where they're like, oh, never mind, we found the person, or like we're sending in a different team first and you guys are the second wave for when they get tired, or like, okay, yeah, we need you now, go to the staging area. And then once we get to the staging area, you'll get all of the details and where you need to be, because we don't want everyone rushing to the last known location and obliterating evidence. So we have staging areas where we go, we meet, we get our assignment, and then we make sure that we go in the correct way.
I feel really old now that I mentioned the word pager at the beginning of this, but
I still carry a pager for our fire department.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't sure they still had a pager network out there.
Yep. No, so ours is radio. It's basically radio receiver.
But hospitals will still use pagers too, because the doctors don't want cell phones; they just want a pager.
Yep, they just want to be able to read it. They don't want to have to answer anything. The doctors still get those old school like text pagers. Yeah. That just shows a text message. But no, we use radio pagers, and it's just a one way. Like it's just a receiver, right? So it's programmed on a program to receive on our frequency, and then whenever the tones drop, you'll either hear it through a radio if you're nearby, or in a pager. But yeah, those absolutely still exist. That's not not that bad. That's not that dumb.
Few and far between, but yeah, they're still out there. Yep. The average person would never use it, but certain things like situations like this, or if you're on call in the hospital, because they'll just keep trading the pager off between the different doctors depending on who's on call.
Mm. So sorry, go ahead.
And like not that long ago, there was a phone tree, and you like the person, the liaison officer would call the first 3 people, and they would each be responsible for calling the people in their teams, who would each be responsible for calling the people in their teams. And we decided it was a maximum of 5 people. But each person could call 5 people effectively, and we could have the entire team notified in under 6 minutes.
No, we just do email, text that kind of all goes out all at once.
All at once. Yeah, you can't forget anybody that way.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying though, because like you'll be sitting there and then all of a sudden your phone blows up because you're getting all of the things all at once.
Yeah,
but like they're usually staggered ever so slightly, because it's like I have to click the send out email chain button. Now I click the send text button. Then all the others you get ding, 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 ding. Yeah. But you can't miss it that way.
Awesome. So assuming you get the tones, is there an expected like response time for you guys? Like, they expect you out the door in 15 minutes, or is it more of like show up whenever you can thing, or how does it work?
Well, obviously the sooner the better. Depending on the nature of the search. Depending on the nature of the search, a few things happen, right? One, there's a lot to do. Overall, so generally we'll go out, we try and break things down into like hour-long taskings, and sometimes they're longer and sometimes they're shorter, but we try and keep it about an hour. That's about how long people can stay on task before they got to come back and pee and have a coffee and maybe a snack, depending on the time of day. But so if you're there and you're available for the first tasking, that's great. If you come a little bit later, you'll be worked into a later tasking. Obviously, we want as many people there as early as possible, because we want to cover the most amount of ground in the shortest period of time. Because again, the longer we wait, the wider the search area, the lower our probability of detection. But it will happen. I mean, I've been on searches that are 3 24-hour periods, and so if you can't get there for the first one, then we absolutely need fresh bodies later anyways. So it's not advantageous to have the entire team show up for the first one, and then everybody's exhausted and can't come out to the second one. So for reasons like that, it's good to have a big team, but it's not necessarily, some searches are an emergency, right? Somebody who's been missing for an hour, somebody who walked out the door and said that they were gonna go harm themselves, that's an emergency. You need to be there right here, right now.
Yeah, all the bodies all at once.
Yeah, somebody who's been missing for a week, and we're gonna go clear an area and make sure they didn't sit down underneath a tree and not stand up. Probably less of an emergency. Still urgent, but not necessarily what we call an emergent situation.
Yeah, we kind of try to if we're not sure if it's a rescue or a recovery, we'll treat it like it's a rescue. If we're pretty sure it's a recovery, you've got time to get people there. So you're be there at this time tomorrow. We're going to organize a search, and you've got all the time to get your grid sorted and do all of the planning stuff to do it in a nice, easy, methodical way. You've got that extra added time because it's not so urgent anymore.
That makes sense.
You're trying to find closure for the family more so than anything else at that point, right? So,
all right. So, is it kind of like the movies where you get the line of people kind of going across through the bush and everything else in a nice slow pattern, or how do they coordinate search generally?
So there are 5 or 6 different kind of common methods. Again, the needs of that particular operation will dictate how we do it. If we're searching for evidence, we've done evidence searches where we're looking for a bullet casing in a wheat field, and we're literally crawling hands and knees, shoulder to shoulder, sweeping every square inch of 100 acres. We'll do a few things. Again, it depends on the terrain. It depends on the scenery. Depends on the what we're looking for. In general, you want to be able to see the person next to you. So we have what's called a critical space where where the person next to me and I would both be able to see something between us. And the denser the bush, the closer we are together, the wider the field, the further apart we can kind of get, again, depending on what we're looking for. We can also do a hasty search, which is, this person went up this trail in a remote area. They were supposed to, they went up it's at 6 a.m. They usually come back by noon. Now it's 3 o'clock. They haven't come back. We'll probably just run up the trail with like 3 or 4 people, and we'll kind of flank out on either side so that we can kind of cover, just off the trail in case that person decided to take a nap, or they fell and they hurt themselves. They're not immediately visible, but we'll run up the trail kind of really, really quickly. We call that a hasty search. And I don't mean literally run, but I mean, we're not breaking bush necessarily to find this person, but we are going to go, we're going to search on either side of that trail as quickly as possible. And then, again, depending on the circumstances, we might get into visual tracking, right? Where if we find a print from somebody, we can see where they've left the trail. Now we've gone down to like a 3-person team or a 4-person team, where you're now searching 15 feet wide at a time, and you're only going as fast as you can find the signs, which could take seconds. It could take minutes. It could take, half an hour to move 10 feet in some circumstances.
I mean, we pretty much do the same, where it's depending on what exactly we're looking for and the terrain. We run a line, we'll stagger it sort of on like a bit of a 45-degree angle, with the front guy being the lead, and sort of it all tapers off of him just so that you can see all around you kind of. But it's all depending on spacing. So if we're just looking for a person and it's wide open terrain, then we'll space our people out. If we are looking for evidence or something small and it's, tight, we'll bring everything in. But on a hasty search, like Alan's saying, we'll have a couple of guys on bicycles, or if somebody's got an ATV or something, then you just while everyone else is sort of staging to get ready to do a proper grid search of some kind, whichever method you use, we'll send a couple of guys on bicycles or that are sort of, fitter and faster to book it up that trail, not like a sprint, like Alan's saying, but faster than you can move through the bush, just to make sure that they didn't just twist an ankle on the path, right?
That makes sense.
Eliminate the easy stuff quickly so that you can work on the other stuff.
On our team, we call that the low-hanging fruit. We try and get rid of that stuff as quickly as possible. Eliminate the likelihood or the likely spots, because those, again, that can be the difference. It might take 2 hours to do a proper search up that trail, or 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes on your bike, and that can be all the difference.
Yeah. And for the most part, unless someone's actively trying to not be found, they're going to probably take the path of least resistance, right?
Well, I think Hughes touched on that too. Like you said, out in Nova Scotia, they had a bunch of roads where they actually justified the use of quads, because with all the side roads they had, they could just go zorching up and down with the quads, and usually they found the guy right away on one of the side roads.
Yep. Somebody turned left instead of right coming back down the trail, and they just ended up on a different trail and couldn't find their way out. Right. Those are the common ones. And that's where that hasty search is really easy, where you can just stop and interview people as you go. Right. Hey, we're looking for a guy who's about 5'10". He's carrying a red backpack. Have you seen him? Oh yeah. I passed him just down this trail, 10 minutes ago. Right. We can, we can often solve those problems pretty expediently.
Well, that, if you did go for a hike and you're kind of lost, and you've got 2 options: go up the really steep hill, or go down the hill on the sort of path that's there. Which one are you going to pick, right? You're going to pick the easier of the ones, because at least then you're not going to get more lost or tired or whatever, right? So, unless you're actively trying to not be found, people are pretty predictable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just in order to make sure that they don't increase the amount of people lost, do you guys limit your searches to daylight only, or is there any sort of limitations like that?
No. We do 24 hours. Yeah. Frankly, it's often easier to search at night. There's a lot less static. There's a lot less, vehicle traffic. There's a lot fewer pedestrians. There's a lot less interaction. There's a lot less, just a lot less going on. So you're able to focus a little bit better on your task at hand. Of course, there are some downfalls to that, but we're never going anywhere alone. It's like search is a team. It's a team sport. Always is, no matter what.
And we're always within eyesight of somebody on either side of us, and we've all got whistles, we've all got, radios, we've all got flashlights. So it's not that we couldn't get lost, it's just very difficult, right? And there's a very strict sign in and sign out. No one is allowed to take their car keys or their wallet into the bush. That all gets left at the command post when you sign in and sign out.
Good incentive.
Nothing worse than dropping your keys in the bush in the middle of nowhere in the nighttime.
Yeah.
And then you have to go out and find that again. You have to go do that whole job a second time.
Yeah, and so there's no leaving the site without signing out, because that's how you get your keys back. So it's not like, oh, wait a minute, where did Alan go? Right? Like he's told somebody, or you go to the thing and you look in the command post and it's like, well, his keys are gone and he's signed out, so he's probably left. Okay, he's not lost.
Yeah. As opposed to, there's a set of keys here and not a person. So
yeah, and I mean, and anything that you do could end up becoming some sort of legal process, right? So everything needs to be documented thoroughly. While it may not start out that way, right? It might just be like little Jimmy is lost. It could unfortunately go very poorly, and now all of a sudden, you need to be interviewed by police for what you find or anything. So everything is documented as to who's there, exactly when you started, exactly what section you searched, what time did you leave. Always bring a spare pair of shoes or clothing so that if you needed to turn in anything as evidence, you can do that and you're not driving home in your underwear.
Yep.
Fair enough. Actually, on that note, when you guys are out searching, do they have the LoJack on you? Like, can they see a GPS representation of everybody searching around, or like what kind of tools do you use?
So we use a GPS. So we use GPS. I imagine most police have the same thing when they use there's an evidence tracking program. It's called QV7, and I don't know. I've never worked with it, but I'm aware of it on a high enough level to know that essentially what happens is we take our GPS units and we start our track at the at the starting point that we're assigned. We use them at least on the flanks. And usually one in the middle if we don't have one on every person. We search our assigned area, we stop the track, we take it back to the command post, we turn them in. That information is then added to their incident map, and you can literally see the overlays of where everybody's searched and when it was searched and who was on it. So there's a lot of documentation that goes into that.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily see it in real time, but they see it kind of.
It is there.
It's by the time we're back and pouring our coffee, the information of where we've been has been done in a way that we can see the gaps where we haven't searched yet.
Yeah, we do the same, although we're not quite as well funded, so it's only the team leader that's got a GPS, but I have my own that I always run independently of that as well, just so that I know where I've been should I ever need to know.
Yeah, and we get those assigned to us usually from the we've got a bunch on our own team, but we bought the same models that the local police use that we work with most. So if we don't have enough of ours, we use theirs.
Yeah, where we do most of ours, the local police is smaller than the team that we're on, so the team has their own GPSs, but it's the same thing. It basically comes back to the command post at the end. They put it in, plug it in, put it on the map, and you can see exactly where you've been and if you've deviated, so that if we need to go back and research an area, we know where we were and where we didn't. Because sometimes there's dense bush in an area and you have to shift left or right or whatever to get around it because you can't really get through it easily, and you can go back and you can see all of that stuff.
Yep.
Cool. What about the fancy stuff like the helicopters, drones, dogs, all that stuff?
Helicopters, absolutely. Around here, it's OPP that have the helicopters. I'm sure like bigger municipalities might have their own, but around here, it's helicopters. We've seen them on our searches before. Dogs, they exist for search capacities, but they are usually pretty limited. Mostly because they're really expensive, to buy, train, and maintain. Like really, really expensive. It's a huge time commitment of the handlers and the trainers. There's a lot of documentation required to show that this dog is going to be an effective tool. And then, like as Gavin kind of mentioned earlier about funding, like search and rescue teams in Ontario are volunteer and self-funded. So
yeah, I mean, there's some stipends that are given from the government, but it's like, here's your $100 for the year.
Yeah, we mostly get a tax credit if we put in enough hours. But the
200 hours for those of you in Ontario that are looking to join for another reason.
Yep, it's 200 hours. You get a $3,000 tax credit. But it's so everything we do is either we either get a grant. There are some provincial grants. There's some national grants, or it's fundraising through private sector. So in order, like the cost associated with maintaining a dog like that, I mean, those dogs are probably a year of constant training before they're even ready to be certified, and then once they are, I think I read somewhere, and I don't quote me on this for sure, but I read somewhere that's I guess 10 hours a month of training that they have to put in.
Yeah, we were fortunate, and we had one on our team, and man, does it ever make a difference! Like they can pick up a scent when you're like, there's no way, like unfortunately the handler that ran it moved away to the U.S. and I mean, unfortunately, his canine passed away recently as well. But I mean, when he was out there, it was most of the searches ended before I even got there because that's how good the dog was. Yeah. So it can really, really help, but they are extremely cost prohibitive.
Yeah, there's a lot of funding that goes into that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of I know again from my previous job, we would tell people, if somebody's missing, don't send a dozen of your relatives out and run around everywhere and try and look for them, because all you're doing is contaminating the scene. Even if you get a dog out there, if you've done that dog's not going to do anything. He's just going to go in circles because.
Well, a lot of the time, the initial thing is not so much getting out there. It's handling the family, right? It's making them stay put, not freak out and not do stupid things that are just going to make things more difficult for you down the road, which seems counterintuitive because they want to be out there to help, but you're like, no,
it's not helping.
Especially when they go out and now they're lost too.
It's always with the best of intention. There's no question of that. It's always with the best of intention, but there's very few times when untrained searchers are actually helpful. And then drones, as you asked, are becoming more and more prevalent. They're great for accessing areas that you can't necessarily walk into, but they are they're really expensive to get the good ones and the ones that can actually transmit their signal reliably, and it can be recorded, and we can GPS tag it and all that stuff. So it's
we've got one of our volunteers just that's his jam. So like he went out and bought one. So he's got one with the night vision and the thermal camera, and like that's the kind of thing when you want to do a hasty search, you let that thing rip down the path, and as long as the thing that you're looking for is still warm, you'll find it.
As long as it's warmer than ambient temperature, you'll see it pretty quick. Which is they're great, and they're becoming more and more prevalent as the technology becomes. But
again, it's cost prohibitive, right? Especially when like we don't get the government funding for all of the cool toys and stuff like that. I mean, showing up, we have to pay for our own gas, right? Like, so as the gas price goes up, so the team coming out becomes more expensive, right? But these people are still doing it out of the goodness of their hearts.
Yep.
I don't know how they managed to do it out here, because they seem to have all sorts of command trailers and all sorts of equipment.
BC is paid, I believe.
Yeah, BC has a very different system because they've got because they're not doing urban searches for the most part, right?
I guess with the mountains and the ocean, there's a lot more people that get lost. So
eaten or whatever. Yeah.
So on that note, there's a lot of differences between BC and Ontario.
You can tell me about that. Anyway, so on that note, if you guys are out in a search and either the search gets called off or they want to focus the search on something, piece of evidence they found, how do you guys communicate back and forth when you're out in the field?
Radios?
So radios for sure.
Yeah.
We usually have in our experience, we usually have a police officer with us, because we're usually working in urban or suburban areas, and they're the authority having jurisdiction, so it makes good sense for us to be able to direct questions to them. That said, I've come across more than one situation where somebody was more than happy to talk to me about things, but not talk to the guy with the blue hat. So that's you kind of get the best of both worlds when we do that. So they usually run command their own comms on their frequencies. Despite that, we have our own radio net. So again, speaking about Ontario, because that's what I know about. There is a provincial common frequency that is assigned to the kind of the Ontario governing body. It's called OSARVA, the Ontario Search and Rescue Volunteer Association. So we have, that has its own channel. There is, I believe, a national frequency. So you have interoperability, but I don't know enough about that to have any kind of real opinion.
Yeah.
Like most of our guys, so we have, like, our team has a bank of radios that we use, and then most of our guys have the Baofangs that we program with Chirp to have those. We also have a stash of FRS radios for smaller areas. They're lighter, they're a little bit easier to use, and like my Baofeng for search, so I have one dedicated to it because I have a lot of radios. Thanks, Eric. I got those at Rapid Survival, by the way. Those I have one that's dedicated to my search pack, and it's like I programmed it with all the FRS and GMRS frequencies, as well as our commons, and a couple of other kind of common ones, like St. John Ambulance has a provincial common frequency as well. So again, for interoperability, we have I have the programming for those.
Yeah, our radios are set up more or less the same. We've got like our own team frequencies where we are in Peel. They're nice enough to give us a few of the frequencies that they don't use, so we have our own for our team. But then the teams that we work with frequently, we have their stuff programmed in as well. And we'll usually have, when we run a search, it's going to be us on our team, and then if it's something where we think we might need a cop, they will put, like a probie or something with the team that has the police radio, and then he radios it in to the, the higher ups if something, you're looking for evidence or something, right? He'll be the guy that calls it in, and then their guys will be like, all right, flag it or bag it or whatever you need to do. And then he'll be the one that's responsible for actually handling the evidence so that we don't have to touch it in most cases.
Fair enough. So the Volunteer Association of Canada, like the Search and Rescue SARVAC frequency, I guess it is. I'm assuming it's not encrypted, so people can just listen on a scanner or whatever, or on their Baofangs, just as long as they don't transmit.
Yep, absolutely. And I don't. Yeah, it would be really nice to not transmit on that, because especially while we're operating, that would be
great.
Helpful.
Yeah. Although I don't think anyone really does. I mean, that would have to be like a major search where you're pulling teams from all
multiple
over
provinces. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that said, we get requests
channel
on pretty
52, right? Like
we get asked pretty regularly to like stand by to be deployed. Actually, a couple of our members went up to a remote community in Northern Ontario for kind of a joint operation there a few weeks ago. They had some ongoing issues in that community, so they needed extra bodies. So we had a few of our people go up, and a couple of our people and a couple from one of our neighboring associations, and so having that interoperability is important. It doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but we've sent our people all around the province down to to Ottawa. We've sent them to Toronto. We've sent them down Niagara, up to up as far as Algonquin Park in the north, and then more recently up towards that was up north of Thunder Bay, where that last deployment was. So it does happen. So having that interoperability is good, but things would have to go really, really, really badly if we're pulling in from other provinces. Which isn't to say that it can't happen. It's just the coordination on that and the cost versus benefit may not be there. Well,
and so I mean, one of the nice things is that teams are starting to standardize and stuff like that. So like there is a course you can take, incident management systems. And so like if you are planning to get into this and you are on a team, you should probably do that, because there is a system that's standardized more or less across North America that like all of the emergency people need to know. So that way when you're talking
requirement for joining our team, we won't even look at your application if you don't have that certificate.
Yeah, so you should take that.
It's a free course.
Free. Yeah.
I'll
at least level 1 is free. After you go up, you got to kind of pay for it and stuff like that, depending on where you are. But like, you should have the basics. Yeah. It really helps for that interoperability, so that like when you go to a place, you're all using the same language and you know what you're talking about, and not just like, we do the thingamabob, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? So.
Fair enough. I think you guys pretty much touched on it, but if it does turn into a recovery, or if you stumble across a body or whatever, is there some sort of protocol in places to preserve the evidence, or you keep a distance from it, or how does it work?
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Stop where you are. Call the police.
The minute that you spot it, stop. Call it in.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that applies to evidence as well, too, right? Like,
yeah,
they might, if there's evidence, right? Somebody we find a jacket, that would be a great time to get a dog involved. If there's one available.
Yeah.
So if we start touching it and playing with it and moving it around, whatever, right? We cause all kinds of extra problems. We contaminate the evidence. So rule number 1 is don't touch it. Rule number 2 is refer to rule number 1.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we radio it in, and then we see what the minute you think you see anything, you halt the line so nobody moves.
Yep.
And then you kind of look and go, okay, and then hopefully you've usually got a photo of the person that you're searching for, or a description or something. The problem is that the descriptions are terrible usually and not accurate at all. But on the one that I did recently, we had a photograph of the person sort of right before they went missing from a security camera, and we found a pair of sunglasses in the area that we were searching. And I'm the one that spotted them, so it's like instant halt. I carry kababa sticks with me, as Alan knows what those are. They're just little like flagging sticks, and I put one down, not on it, but like close to where that is, and I tag the GPS location so I know where it is, and I can relay that information as I'm waiting for the cop to radio it into his guy. And he like takes a picture of it and sends it to the guy, and they're like, okay, yeah, no, those are not the ones that we're looking for, like, so you can just ignore those. So then like I pulled my stick and like away we went. But like, had those been maybe a little bit closer or whatever, then like they might want to bag those for evidence. So like, we flag it, we mark its GPS location, and like give it a wide berth, and then we can keep going on or whatever. But that's kind of the like, everyone stop, don't move, wait for instructions, and go from there.
So out here, they always talk about like hikers are supposed to file a trip plan with a responsible person and everything else. Is there like a standardized, like, I've never seen a form or anything like that. How does that work for filing a trip plan?
There is, I mean, there's no requirement. There's good ideas.
If you go to that provincial park that's really, really, really far north where you have to fly in, you're required to file a trip plan because you're in the middle of nowhere. Other than that, there's no requirements, basically.
Yeah. But there are best practices that we know, and we know this. This is one of those kind of standards that's written in blood, because we've experienced this, and we put that into a really fun and easy to use program called Adventure Smart, which starts out with the younger kids as hug a tree of.
I just happen to be an Adventure Smart instructor, so you can hire me for kids' parties, and we can teach them to hug a tree.
Yep, exactly. So there's Adventure Smart is there's a whole series of programs, for specific outdoor pursuits, whether it's just kids or just kids wandering off, or whether you are a paddler or a snowmobiler or a hiker or a backwoods paraglider, whatever, right? There's all kinds of options to all kinds of options for training. So it's a really good idea to at least be aware of those programs, because it will tell you about the basics of, what do we call it? The 3 T's, right? Take the basics, trip planning, and taking the essentials. Taking the essentials, training, and trip planning. Yeah. Anyways, but set a standard, right? It's one thing to say, I'm going to follow this route. It's quite another thing to say, I'm going to check in at these waypoints, and I expect each leg to take 4 hours. And if you don't hear from me by, 3 hours after my check-in, then we're going to start the emergency protocol.
Yeah. I mean, even just having done a bunch of like solo hikes and even, with some friends and stuff like that over the last while that have been a little bit more adventurous and physically demanding, it was, here's the route that I'm planning to take. This is how long it should be. And just sending it to friends of mine, or the parents or your significant other, whoever is going to be worried about you, is a heck of a lot more than the average person does. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, the good news is it looks like a bunch of people out here, judging by the amount of tree huggers we have, they obviously took that course to heart. So
yes.
Yep.
Yeah. No.
Absolutely. Hugging a tree can be you can take it too literally, but that's something different entirely.
Yeah. So, assuming things go sideways, and you can't find any evidence, any person, any body, at what point do they call it and say it's time to give it up?
There are, again, a lot of factors involved in that. How long that person was missing, if we have any clue as to where they were, or what direction they traveled, if they want to be found. Right. If somebody's trying actively to not be found, and that often goes back to we do what's called a missing person profile. That goes back to that interview with the family, and is this person trying to not be found? And if that's the case, and we can't find them, then they'll more likely call off that search in a more expedient fashion, as opposed to somebody who was just out for a day hike and was had dinner plans that night that they didn't show up for. We'll probably keep going on that. I've been through searches that take 3 operational periods, 3 24-hour periods, and we're going for 8, 10, 12 hours in each of those periods, trying to find this person because we don't know. There's so many variables in that.
Weather, if it's terrible weather and it starts threatening the team's safety, you call it off.
Yeah.
Right. If it's beautiful out and you could go for, hours and hours and hours with no problem, you might be out there, until you've searched an entire area and can definitively say that person is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because everything is a best guess, right? You take all of the data that you've got about the person and where they were last seen and what direction they were heading and what they were wearing and all of this. And then you kind of take your best guess as to what area they're in. And you start there. And then you kind of work your way out from there in some sort of methodical way, so that at the end of it, you can go, well, we've looked everywhere that's reasonable, including a few places that aren't, and they just aren't there.
Yeah, well, we had one up our way a few years ago for an elderly lady with some mental capacity issues that walked away, and she was seen on video surveillance at a house walking by, and they searched for 3 days and called it off. Of course, the family was mad, but they said she's an elderly lady. She wasn't dressed for the conditions. The temperature got really cold. We've been at this for 3 days. We've given it everything we've got. The chances of us finding her alive are, and as it turned out, once the spring came, she was found laying beside a creek of a golf course that was 8 kilometers away.
Yeah, I mean, much kind of like we joked earlier, and this is not in a joking way, but it's expensive to do these things, right? The gas price alone, right? So you've got to screen your response calls. You also have to screen all of the things and manage your resources. You've only got so many people and so much time and so much of everything. How much are you going to devote to that, to looking for somebody that doesn't want to be found, or looking for somebody that's chances of survival are not that great anymore? I mean, it's,
we did the
bad, but
math on one search, and this person ended up being found. Well, he ended up coming home. He'd taken off for the weekend and didn't tell anybody. But we were out for 3 days. Police overtime. OPP helicopter got involved. We had all of our people out, and we'd called one of our local kind of sister organizations. We did the math, and that particular search ran up about $100,000.
Ouch.
Just in labor and labor, fuel spent on generators, because there aren't like plugs we can just plug a command post into. So we're running generators for that. Fuel spent, but we had to we got to feed the troops. You've got calling in the helicopter. Like helicopters,
yeah,
they can run
that alone is going to
$1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's by the time it shows up to the scene, you're probably $10,000 into it, right? So that money is very well spent, right? The human life is completely priceless. Like nobody's objecting to that. It's just putting into context how much time are we, like what kind of resources are we actually putting into this when we don't know where the person is. We've exhausted the reasonable probability of finding them, and the chances of them still being, the chances are either that they're no longer on this plane of existence, or they have found a place to hunker down for a few days, and we're not going to find them. They're staying with a friend, and they're going to show up when they show up.
Yeah. At that point, they're fine, or you'll find them eventually when the weather turns or something.
Yeah. So it's kind of usually by the third day we're getting into that scenario. Now that's all weather dependent, right? Right now, where it's 25 degrees during the day and 15 degrees at night, somebody's not freezing to death. So 3 or 4 days out in the woods is not unreasonable for somebody to survive, right?
Especially if that person was out on a camping trip anyways and had all of the things they needed to survive. They just took the wrong path, or they twisted an ankle or something, right?
Exactly. So that might keep a search up for weeks potentially, as opposed to somebody who walked away in their in their jammies and slippers and it's minus 35 outside. Right. So all of those factors are going to play play huge into the decision as to when we change, and the searches, the ground search might be called off, but the case doesn't close. Right. If you follow any police department's Facebook page or Twitter or Instagram, like they put out appeals every day, missing person looking for, and they provide as much information as possible. Those things keep going. Or, right, you might have that missing kid from Hamilton that I put in the news, right? They would have been searching for him in Hamilton for a while. All of a sudden, he's found in Ottawa. So the ground team in Hamilton is obviously going to be called off because we have new information. We don't need to be searching here anymore.
Right.
So that all of those things play big factors into how that search is managed, and when the ground search is terminated.
Yep. That, and I mean, unfortunately, there's also like the social factors that play into this, and like how prominent is this person in the community and things like that, as to like how much attention the case gets and everything. I mean, that was the last one that I was on, was that like we didn't get on the track until a month after they'd been missing. The local police were, putting out their notices every day, but their resources are limited. There's only like 3 people on, duty at any given time. They can't devote the time. Then eventually, I guess the squeaky wheel got the grease and, got things mobilized, where they called in, the auxiliaries, and they partnered up with us, and we went out and, we were successful in our recovery. But like, that took a month to even get something out there. There was an initial search, but the person was known to be an addict, and known to not want to be found.
I think we covered most of your points there, Alan. But do you guys want to talk quickly about tracking?
Yeah, so Gavin and I have both we've both taken training in what's called visual tracking. If you ever watch the show Man Tracker, it's kind of the same concept, although that show was pretty terrible. But
it's not accurate at all.
Not even a little bit. But
there's a lot more time spent
Most
down on
shows
your
have
hands and
nothing to
knees.
do with reality, anyways.
Absolutely correct, Jeff. But yeah, so the reality is that with every step that we take, we are leaving signs of our existence. The general rule is, an average adult will leave somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 signs per kilometer traveled. The denser the bush, the more sign there is. The shorter your steps, the more sign there is. And so it's a really, really fun process learning how to pick up that sign, how to identify it. The course that I was on was 3 days, and by the third day we were looking at the stuff we did on the first day, and you could see, we could kind of learn how things age. There'd been some rain overnight, so that added a little bit to the challenge, but also showed us some different things. But if you decide that you're going to go out into the woods and you think that maybe getting lost is a possibility, do yourself a favor and spend $3 before you go. Get some flagging tape. You can get that at Canadian Tire. You can order that from Amazon. I think you can even buy it at Princess Auto. It's cheap. It's really easy to come by. Leave yourself some flags. A, you're more likely to be able to find your way back. B, it makes our finding you so much easier.
Yeah, it's way easier to find that like hot orange or pink flagging tape and see which direction you were heading than trying to find the pattern of your sole of the boots that you and every other hiker on that trail has. But also, like, step in some dirt and take a picture of it and send that to your friends so that, like, at least we have that. Because, so many times you ask them, do you know what shoes they had? I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, if I know what the soles of my boots look like because I went through this program, but until I did that, I had, the concept of doing that was you wouldn't think to look at it. Like, I knew that if you go and you ask the right people the right questions, there are databases of shoe treads. But like, one of the things that I learned is that even the same shoe made in a different factory will have a slightly different tread pattern. And then, of course, all the ways that you walk will wear it a little bit differently. So there's so many variables with how to find your track. The longer it takes a tracking team to get involved in this, the worse it is. The further
this is
we have
definitely why, like we were saying earlier, like, you need to get on this ASAP. You especially need to do that when it's like guys that are doing like either dog work or visual tracking, because stuff changes.
Finding that track and getting on it is can be a real challenge. And then once you're on it, like, being able to keep it up, it's fun. Frankly, I loved it. It was a good time. It's exhausting because again, and we're, like we said earlier, like a person walks at an average of 3 kilometers per hour. When I'm tracking, I'm crawling on the ground. I'm absolutely not doing 3 kilometers per hour doing that. And we're operating like 45-minute 45-minute increments before we're taking, before we've got to take a break and reset, which is, it slows down the process, but it can be really, really accurate when it's done properly. So,
I mean, it is like when you're doing it for fun, like we were, Al and I were fortunate to have learned from the same person, but at different times and in vastly different terrains. I was down in Utah when I learned from this gentleman. But like, the skills are the same, and it's really fun because it's like that challenge, right? And you're like, when you're on the track and you're like, oh, I know I'm on it. Like, it is an addictive feeling, right? Like, you're just like, yes, I am. Or when you're unsure because like you've just gone over some terrain where it doesn't really trap footprints well, like something that's just like a bunch of rocks. You're like, I can tell that they've been disturbed, and the disturbances more or less line up with where their footprints should be, and at the end of it there's a big puddle of mud, and you look in it, you're like, yes, there is that footprint I've been tracking again.
Things Oh, it's a great feeling, and a hugely valuable tool. But again, it takes a very specific set of circumstances in order for it to be useful. And so the more, the sooner we can get into it, and the more detail we have by not having a whole bunch of people trample around the last known point, the better off we are, because because
you can completely obliterate the prints you're looking for in the area that you're looking, because you've trampled them or you've driven over them, or in some cases you've set your bloody command post up over top of them, right?
Yep.
But even with guys that are running dogs, a friend of mine in the U.S. that was down there and sort of helped run the course, he's good at both. So he has a dog and that does the thing, but like even being able to visually track. So when you do follow the scent and you come across something that will trap a footprint, it's that visual confirmation that that the dog is still on the right track as well, and you can go that much faster then, because you're like, yep, that's the footprint, keep going. So it's paired together. I mean, that is a massively valuable tool.
Yep. It's very cool.
Assuming somebody wants to be found, a couple quick pointers for people to be more easily found.
File a trip plan, number one.
Yeah.
Put waypoints in it. Set expectations with the person that you're filing this with. It's one thing to say they were planning a 4-day canoe trip through Algonquin Park, and they were going to start here. They were going to start here and there. It's quite another thing to say we're going to check in with our GPS location at at every lunch break and every time we stop for the night. So that narrows the search area down rather significantly, which again expedites
what sites do you plan to stay at? How do you plan to do it? The more information you can give, the better. Now, obviously, like sometimes that changes en route, and that happens, but it still helps narrow things down, because they'll give you a most probable location, so they'll start looking there and then expand outwards. But
it gives us a much better starting point than having to follow that exact route, right? If it's a 4-day trip for you, it's going to be a 6-day trip for us. And if we're already 2 days, already 2 days delayed getting there, that makes life significantly more difficult for that person that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Stay put. That's like, as soon as you realize you're lost, stop moving.
Stay put. Yeah.
Like just stop moving. Hug a tree and survive. Absolutely. I'm lost. I'm gonna post up right here, and
don't try to find your way back. Just stop.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop right here and call for help. And it's is it a little bit embarrassing maybe to have to call for help and say yes, I'm lost. I don't know where I am. Maybe it is. What's really embarrassing is to die of embarrassment. Right?
Oh. I had a buddy of mine, so he went down in an airplane 4 miles from the airport and has an emergency location transmitter in the airplane. And so literally everybody knows where he is via satellite. He decides to walk the 4 miles, and he ended up walking 90 degrees off course from where he should have. They just happened to come across him by accident.
Yep, exactly.
In minus 40 weather.
Yeah, like that kind of thing happens, right? If
if
we're looking for a plane crash,
but stay close to that area. Yeah.
A plane crash is really easy to find. It's like cars too, right? That's happened before in cars, right? Car goes into the ditch. This happened near me a few years ago. I remember this vividly. Car goes into the ditch in the winter. It was snowing. The driver got out, and it was dark. He ended up walking through the field because he could see a house on the other side of the field. So he's walking kind of in line with this house. It was, minus 35, and he wasn't dressed for the weather. He got about a quarter of the way across the field and collapsed.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Good Samaritan happened to be driving by, stopped to check on the car, saw the half filled in footprints, started following them, and found the guy.
Yeah. Stay at least around the car. Like,
probably
stay in the car, because at least you're getting some protection from the elements.
Well,
but if it's dangerous, go enough away that you're no longer in danger.
But then when people come to get that, then you can make yourself known.
Yeah.
And I had a case one time, my old job. You talk about stay with the car. the weather was bad. All the roads were closed. Individual decides they're in a town. They were a waiter at a local restaurant, and they decided to going home anyways. Got to the main highway, which was closed. So instead of being smart and turning around and going back, they decided to continue on. They went down a side road, up another side road, and of course hit a big snowbank, and they're stuck. And I'm talking to them, and I'm like, so you're prepared to be there for hours, right? You've got lots of gas? Well, no, my fuel light's on. And I'm like, okay, you have warm clothing, right? Well, no, I'm a waiter. I've got I've got my dressy shoes on and my light pants, but I have a jacket and I have a toque. Yeah, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
And he almost did not survive. Two, an off-duty OPP and an off-duty fireman had to go in their personal sleds and get him. It took them over 2 hours to get in there and get him.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, I mean,
that's the number one.
Try to stand out. Like, don't wear the same clothing as everyone else. Don't have the same backpack as everyone else. Don't have the same tent as everyone else. The more obnoxious the color and easier to see, the better.
Go back.
But nobody wants to
Grey
hear
Man
that because
episode.
it's not cool, right?
Go back to our Gray Man episode and do the exact opposite.
Exact opposite. Yeah,
Do the exact opposite of that, right? That's,
OPSEC, ball it up, throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention, there's been a few comments in the chat there about, well, send a picture to your friend or do this. If you've got a cell phone, and you should have one, and it should be fully charged, you should have, especially if you're a frequent hiker or out on a trail, you should have downloaded the What's 3 Words app.
Yeah.
Basically, what that does is it will pinpoint where you are on the app. It will give you 3 words associated to your 3-meter square block. All of the local police services, some of the EMS have access to that database. You give them the 3 words that pop up, and they're going to know exactly where you are within 3 meters.
Well, even the Compass app has
anywhere
that long,
in the world.
right? Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
You can get that long off the Compass app. So, I mean,
Although really you should be using MGRS because it's a much finer system. Although I guess, some people still like antiquated things that you used when you were just trying to get from one continent to another.
yeah.
So I just picked a random
Which one
spot.
was that, Gavin?
MGRS,
The military grid reference.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
or UTM,
ATAC,
Universal
whatever.
Trans-Mercator Projection.
Yeah.
Not this like minutes and degrees nonsense.
good stuff.
Nobody knows how to work with that.
I do.
So I just pulled up What 3 Words, and I picked a spot near Ottawa just because it's where I landed there, and it gives me a location that says leaked competition projection. And so if I were to call 911 and say I am, open What 3 Words, I am at leaked competition projection. Instead
Is
of
that
now
the cottage
searching-
by any chance?
it's not in any way, shape, or
Oh.
form. It's a random spot.
Oh,
That
just would have been appropriate.
that would put that would land emergency services within 40 paces of me immediately.
Yeah.
As opposed to I left Highway 401 at the Catesville exit, and I went north for a while, and then I turned left on an Old Dog Road, the place with the big pies in the summer, and then
Where the
I
mansion
turned
used to be.
yeah, and then I turned right at that place where they had that cool dog that one time that I saw, and then I left my car, and now I walked kind of northwest. The sun was at my back when it was setting, and I'm not exactly sure where I am.
Yeah, well, and actually, you bring up a good point on your notes there too. Alan, was like a means to make noise. Because you can only yell so much before your throat gives out. But if you could blow a whistle all night long. And
Blow a whistle all night long. Everybody saw Titanic like 400 times, or was that just me? She couldn't make any
Still haven't
noise.
ever
But she could
seen
blow
it.
the whistle. Okay,
Yeah.
so at the end, a person's like cold in the water and freezing to death, pulls a whistle off somebody, and starts blowing the whistle as the rescue boats are coming, and so they were able to locate the live person as opposed to the dead people. If you go to any boat show, any outdoor show, somebody, it's usually the RCMP, are giving away Fox 40 whistles.
Yeah.
Have half a dozen of them around. Keep one within reach at all times. Have the
sticks.
ability to make noise, have the ability to be seen.
Glow sticks are also great.
Glow sticks are awesome, especially if you can put them on some paracord and fling them around your head.
Yeah, I mean, and
flares are
the
good for that.
universal, like, SOS, like, anything that you've got in a pattern of 3 is generally recognized as an emergency signal, and, you know, someone can spot that, because, like, yes, there will
3
be
whistle
times
blasts,
where
3
you need
gunshots.
to, like, go and take a nap, or, like, you're just tired, or, like, you know, there's a big opening here that you can put like 3 piles of rocks or 3 fires or whatever it is in the opening, but you may not want to be right in the opening. You might want to be like 100 feet back from that, where you've got some shelter, or you've built like a cooking fire or something, right? But it can be seen, you know, things like that. Yeah. Anything to make noise, be seen.
Absolutely. That's be able to be seen, dressed to stand out. Like my hiking pack has a like an orange, like a fluorescent orange backpack cover in it. It's waterproof, which helps keep my kit dry. But more importantly is that it is really visible.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything we didn't cover?
I think we covered everything.
Like, also, like, if you're going out on a hike, bring a map.
Do yourself a favor and be prepared to be out overnight if you're going for a hike.
Always pack a little extra food or a little extra water, or like even just one of those Mylar blankets that packs up to nothing.
Emergencies don't happen to people who are prepared for them.
Yeah.
Is the
you maybe have an inconvenience. Yeah.
Yes. And test your kit.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, podcast challenge time.
Get at least familiar with basic navigation or direction finding and a way of describing your position. What 3 words? Map and compass, MGRS, whatever. Take an Adventure Smart program. And I also put a link in there for the ICS 100, the Instant Command System.
Yeah.
Cool.
All good stuff.
Upcoming events.
The annual Preppers Meet in Desborough, Ontario, July 7th to 10th. Again, if you're looking for information, www.annualpreppersmeet.com.
Cool. We also got TACOM happening September 9th to 11th, which I guarantee they'll have some free Fox 40 whistles there.
Yeah.
TACOMcanada.com. It's going to be in Mississauga. I'm assuming the International Center again, but
from what I hear, that is correct. Yeah.
Oh. Jeff, do you have weather for us?
I do a little bit. There was a chance of potential severe thunderstorms today that kind of really didn't pan out. But we're closely watching. This is from the instant weather, by the way, not me. Closely watching models for more than a week, and they're consistently demonstrating the potential for enhanced severe weather environment next week in deep southwestern and central Ontario. Monday night could see a fairly intense damaging windstorm. However, the strongest severe weather is trending to remain south of the border. Nevertheless, we could see damaging wind gusts in deep southwestern Ontario between 7 p.m. and 2 a.m. on Monday night. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday all have the potential for severe weather. It's a little bit early to pinpoint right now, but Thursday seems to be the day that the atmosphere and the environment has the best widespread potential for strong thunderstorms. Other models are saying it's Wednesday night. So Wednesday, Thursday, be prepared. As soon as I know a bit more information, I'll throw something up on the Discord.
Deal of the week. Cabela's has a one-person backpacking tent on sale. So if you need some really lightweight, affordable shelter, $29.99 is pretty much disposable at that price. It's regular $50, so it's, I guess, 40% off. And it's at Cabela's. I'll have the link there in the show notes momentarily. Shout outs. Alan, do you got a shout out?
Yeah, we'll shout out Darren G. He met 2 podcast challenges and told us about it. Means for protecting the garden and amping up your fire protection gear and plans. So that was very cool. Thanks, Darren, for sharing that with us. We absolutely love to hear what everybody has done for their preps. You can be as anonymous or as bold as you like. Tell us what you've got. If you want to come on the show and talk about it, we'd love to have you on as a guest. So that was Darren. Way to go. Keep it up. All that great stuff. And a shout out to Cam and Kobe from Casual Preppers. We haven't aired it yet, but on Thursday we recorded a kind of a fireside chat with them. So that's look for that coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll find a time to publish that.
That'd be awesome. Actually, I'm too bad I missed that one. I got one for Rooster, Mark, and Chris at the Ballistically Speaking podcast. It's gone through a couple name changes. Originally, it was Gutting Around.
Those guys changed their name more than I changed my underwear.
Pretty much, yeah. Formerly Gutting Around with Sean and John, then become First Focal Plane podcast. Now it's Ballistically Speaking, but they did do a great little episode on prepper chat, like more like a preparedness-minded kind of episode, and I thought it was a pretty good episode. So good for them. And Mark, come on over, pop on here sometime. We'd love to have you. So. Anyway, or all three of them for that matter, but I just marks the prepper, it seems, of the group. So with that, I'm going to bring episode 165 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please help us out and submit a review. It helps other people find us.
And we do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast. Click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we're going live. We absolutely love the comments in the chat. We love the interaction. Please get in here and chat with us. If you want to contact me directly, you can get me at Alan, that's with one L, at prepperpodcast.ca.
Nice. You can mostly find me on the Instagrams, UrbexGTA, or you can find me with Ragnarok Tactical. And you can book us to teach you a land nav class so you can learn all about the latest and greatest when it comes to navigation and using a current system of navigation and not antiquated ones for boats getting from one continent to another.
Don't distill that long. Come on now.
And if you want to reach me, you can just send a message to feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
Awesome. You can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. You can also find Gavin and I on Canadian Patriot Podcasts, which is on iTunes and YouTube. We record Monday evenings back to 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm on the Discord chat for both CPPs, so emails if you want an invite to either Discord chat. There's about 200 people per channel, I think, now. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society makes you wish I could get lost in the bush if these guys weren't so good at finding me.
Support your local search and rescue team. Get lost.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning.